And then before we start our, what's it called, our little theme song and whatnot, I'm going to go, you know, when it like circles around.
No, I'm with you. Do you want me to actually put that in, or you just want to leave your sound effect in?
I mean, it doesn't matter. If you want to put that in, like when we like go to different spots, just take that clip and then like, say we break for like...
For a drink, yeah.
For a drink or
I guess needs
talk
to go to
about
the
drink, like anytime we go to a different little section, maybe.
Higgins,
that'll be the transition.
Exactly. That's what I love about Higgins on this podcast. He's always the man with a plan.
I like to think of dumb ways to start our podcast.
Very good. Well, you want to start that podcast right now?
Yeah, boy.
Excellent. Cheers.
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 Clink.
Clink. Yeah, I was trying to find something that would clink, but
that was good. That was good on the fly clinking. Welcome back, everyone, to Comrades, Cocktails, and Comics. It's a podcast where I, Snoop Lynch, and my co-host, Higgins Stern.
That's me.
He's right there. Normally, the two of us together at the same time, we talk about a book, we talk about a drink, and we talk about each other. We're not here to do that just us this time. We've got a guest this month. A very special guest.
Yeah, long-time listener.
Mm-hmm. And long-time benefactor for the podcast because I work for him and then I use the money to buy podcast equipment.
Oh, wow.
Brian Harris, everyone.
I didn't know that was a part of the arrangement.
Yeah.
Well, hello.
At least he provides a good service to get the money from you.
Yeah. I mean, he's given us money for equipment. He's given us reviews for the show.
Oh, yeah.
Every little bit. And now he's giving us his appearance. First
Content.
time. Yeah.
First time caller.
You got it.
And we don't even have
listener.
to, exactly. We don't have to explain how the show works because he listens to all of our episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only other person that does that is you.
Yeah, I listen to them the first day they come out. I like to see how we sound.
Yeah. I usually do.
Yeah. Business up top, everyone in the room and everyone listening. Higgins, as you know.
It's like a mullet. Sorry, go ahead.
Exactly. And then we'll party later. Higgins, we are the official podcast of 008 Studios.
Yeah, we are.
Mm-hmm. You've met the guy that does that business. His name's Michael.
I've done more than meet him.
Yeah. You've done a podcast with him.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he gave me an update.
We're calling it these days.
He gave us an update earlier this week
Podcast and chill.
on what he's doing. No, you're good. No, keep talking. That's what you're here to do. I actually think I sent you what he said in your electronic mails, Higgins. If you
wow, I haven't looked at my electronic mail.
I sent you an electronic mail too.
You did?
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to pull it up, but I figured I'd prepare everyone. Higgins, I got it right here.
Oop.
So basically, he's just letting us know. We've been talking about it the last couple episodes. He's got a book coming up. It's his first book. He wrote it.
God, I'm so excited to read it.
Oh, so excited. So excited. I can't even remember the name of it right now.
I, like you, Higgins, was immediately Googling it as I was listening to the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
He was talking about it. Come to find out it didn't come out for another couple months.
Mm-hmm.
What is this? What did you send me?
It's that thing we looked at. I'll get into it later.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so the digital version of the book was going to come out in January, and then the physical was due to launch in February. We're in February. The digital version's not out. It's a bit behind. That's not Michael's fault. We're going to blame the illustrator on that because that's what he said. That's the problem is he's waiting on illustrations. And I don't think the illustrator listens to this podcast, so we can badmouth he or she as much as we want.
Yeah, they suck. No, I'm just kidding. They're fine.
Yeah. And you're saying that just in case they are listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're our biggest fan now.
But Michael said that both the physical and the digital version hopefully going to come out towards the end of this month, February.
That's wonderful.
They're going to be same day and date release now.
I have so many spaces on my bookshelf to put another book. It's just completely empty ever since I moved my movies to the movie shelf now.
Yeah, but you just bought the digital version, so I don't know how you're going to put that on the
I'll
shelf.
do both.
Yeah?
I'll support a guy.
How are you going to talk about his book with an unbiased opinion on the show? That's my curiosity.
I'll badmouth him all day.
Yeah.
He'll take it.
Yeah, it's fine. No, I mean, we never. If we did, we'd probably start another podcast that he doesn't sponsor.
I think we've only said like a bad thing about one. We've only like completely badmouthed one book that we've read. So like we usually find the bright side of things.
Yeah.
I've badmouthed 2 books.
Yeah.
You like that
Matter
one.
of fact, the last one wasn't it?
No, we like the last one.
Maybe it was the one before
We
that.
love the
He
last
just
one.
badmouthed Flintstones as a cartoon.
That's what it was.
It's a terrible cartoon.
Yeah, you hated the cartoon.
Everyone hates the cartoon. No one looks fondly back on that cartoon.
But
we already talked about that. So yeah, I just want to give everyone a quick update on that. And of course, updates will come in further episodes on this project and more.
and if you need to set up a project of your own, a book, a video game, other multimedia things, I don't exactly know all of the things that his thing grasps, but I think he does all of it.
Maybe you'll do a video game based on a book.
But yeah, go find them at 0-8studios.com.
Now, Higgins, that sounds like a slightly difficult URL to type up in your local Google or Bing, but luckily, I'm going to leave a link for that in the description as below.
That's perfect.
And I'll
I
leave
just
some.
asked Jeeves, typically.
You can do that. It's
Oh,
fine.
sweet.
We'll allow it. If it's still, can you still go to askjeeves.com?
Yeah, let's find out.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask Jeeves if I can go to
I'm gonna ask
askjeeves.com. In the meantime, though, Higgins, tell us a couple things we're going to talk about today. Now that we've gotten business out of the way.
All right, so I think I have a layout for us. Well, I'm going to start with the book because a book is our brand. The book is our brand, and I think Brian, you chose Batman: The Killing Joke for us by Alan Moore
I did.
and Brian Boland.
Tyler and I went through a extensive list, and we landed on The Killing Joke because there was a connection to also a movie,
Yeah,
which we'll talk about later, I'm sure.
Exactly.
which works out perfect because this is a small boy and an exciting thing. I had actually already read this before we needed to read it again for this podcast. So
Excellent.
I think I even watched the cartoon
The animated
film. Yeah.
Yeah, so normally what Higgins and I do, we talk about a book and a drink, and then we'll go off to a different segment. Higgins will do the theme song for that later, where we just talk about any thing that's not a book. So with Brian here, we want to do something a little different. We were talking about it, and he had the idea, well, let's find a movie and a book that we can talk about both specifically. And we decided on Joker and The Killing Joke. I think it's a good one because Brian, you don't typically actually read comics. That's
not typically. I don't.
Yeah. For whatever reason, you like to listen to the show, which we appreciate.
Yeah. I enjoy the show. Matter of fact, I think I'm the president of the CCC fan group. Oh, wow. We have a
The
gang sign.
CCC
If this was a
FC.
video podcast, you'd see the CCC sign.
Oh wow.
I love that.
Yeah. So
C3FC.
the C3FC.
Nice. So yeah, I thought this would be, when we were going through ideas and everything, I thought this one would be a good one for you. One, because it's an easy to ask read. It's only like, what,
Honestly,
48
it's like
pages or something?
Oh,
yeah,
Yeah.
it said like 60 in like the book, but like it was maybe 50. I
Yeah.
read it in like
It's
30 minutes maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which that's good for someone who doesn't read comics, which we talk about people who typically like, what are some comics we recommend? I think this is a good one because it's an important story in comics, like specifically DC's history. It's gone on to do a lot for their continuity and everything. And you don't need that much knowledge about that continuity. You just need to know who Batman is. Everybody knows who Batman is
Yeah.
because we make like a movie every like 4 years, and everyone knows who the Joker is at this point.
Everybody knows the Joker, but everybody doesn't know a lot about the Joker because before this story, his backstory was basically just a mystery.
Higgins, it was ambiguous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're like, here's this guy, and that's what made him scarier as a villain technically.
Yes, and I still think that that's true to this day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is the first Elseworld stories. Is that what they call it? DC calls their, or other worlds, Elseworld stories.
Brian, do you
Is that
know about Elseworlds?
No.
Okay.
That's not an origin story?
No, so in Marvel and DC's history, and so like you have your publishers, you have DC, you have Marvel, and then you have like their stories, and a lot of them are in the same continuity.
Yeah.
Well, Marvel had, and they actually just made a show, I guess last year, about their version, What If, where it's just like, what if instead of Peter Parker getting bit by Spider-Man, it's his childhood bully. And so it's just a one-off story, and it doesn't matter. You're just going to read a contained story. And so DC's thing along that lines was called Elseworlds. And there's a bunch of different ones. Like, I think there's one that, what if Superman landed in Gotham City and he was adopted by the Waynes? So he goes through Bruce Wayne's origin story, but he has Superman's powers.
Or
So
like the Russia Red Sun one, which did we do?
We haven't
We
done
did-
Red Sun, no.
And we talked about it, maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, so it's that. And so The Killing Joke, that's what it originally was intended for. And that's why it's just a one-shot graphic novel format. Alan Moore, Alan Moore is one of the greatest comic writers of all time.
He's a crazy man, but
the only person that doesn't think he's a great writer is Alan Moore. And I was reading, I think we all read the same version of the story, the deluxe hardcover edition or whatever. And so there's a little kind of prelude by Tim Sale, who wrote just as many great Batman comics. He wrote the Long Halloween and some other stuff. And he talks about kind of what comics were in this era. And I didn't even put it together, but yeah, some of the greatest stories for DC in particular, all back to back to back like this. You had this, you had Watchmen, also Alan Moore. You had The Dark Knight Rises, Frank Miller.
yeah, Swamp Thing, also Alan Moore, which you can listen to us talk about.
So this one is maybe I'd say not the most important for comics, but it's out of that list I just said, it's probably the most important for DC's history. And it wasn't supposed to be. As that one-off kind of Elseworld story, it was just supposed to be, this is a self-contained book. Anything can happen. It does not matter because a lot of people care about this doesn't make sense with what I know about Batman. It doesn't matter. It was so popular and so well received that they folded it into the mainline continuity, which I think kind of affects the ending a little bit, which I want to ask you guys later. But
It affects the ending. Well, yeah, later, like we said, but specifically with this one, it's one, if not the only Elseworld stories that has been brought into hey, now this is canon in this, which was canon in the Rebirth era, basically.
It's pretty much been consistently canon, or at least alluded to in future kind of mainline stories. And I think the biggest instances you see of that are
Barbara Gordon as the Oracle, basically.
Yeah, and did you know about Batgirl before this story? Did you know about that character?
No, I mean, no, not really. And I think you told me about it prior, just in random conversations.
Yeah.
And I think you told me that was Barbara Gordon.
Yeah.
But she's already Batgirl in this story.
Correct,
right?
yeah.
Because
She knows
Bruce
Wayne is Batman and all of that.
Yeah.
And you'll probably hear a lot more about her in the next few years because HBO Max, I believe, is coming out with a Batgirl movie. And then Brendan Fraser's going to be the villain in it.
I love that.
I know, me too. He's back in a big way. But yeah, so that's the biggest continuation of this story when they folded it in for me, is because she's Batgirl at this point. You don't actually see her suit up, but she's Batgirl, and we can kind of just spoil this. However, I feel like anyone who knows anything about Batman comics, or is listening to this, either doesn't care or knows already. But when she gets paralyzed by that gunshot, it sticks. And so when they bring her back, which isn't shortly after, I think they did it in a one-shot special.
Quick, yeah.
She's still crippled. And what I like about that, now, at the time it didn't mean much, but she's since went on to become a superhero in her own right while being in a wheelchair. She's basically she's the person at the desk.
Yeah, quote unquote man in the chair, like that one dude from Spider-Man movies and
the
stuff
kid
like
from
that.
Spider-Man, yeah. So Batman and Batwoman, whoever's part of the Bat family, they'll be she'll be in their ear, helping them figure out what's going on and
I didn't know that.
So her superhero name in when she's in a wheelchair is Oracle, and
because she kind of knows all because she
sees all,
surfs
she's
the internet,
data.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy that element of it because when you get to see representation in comics for the handicap, that's a big deal. But also, she's just as competent and important of a character when fighting crime, even without the use of her legs.
Honestly, probably more than when she was Batgirl.
Did that happen after this book? Did this book set the precedent? Now she's in a wheelchair.
Yeah, and that's kind of the first instance. Like I said, I think I saw that they did a Batgirl one-off special the next year after this came out in 1988 that showed that she was in the wheelchair at that point. And that's when you started to see this fold into the mainline continuity. And that's probably the biggest impact. And it's changed. So she's Batgirl again, typically in the mainline continuity. She's got a special chip in her back that works or makes her spine work. It's a whole thing. Yeah. And I don't like that as much because you don't get to, because she's in the wheelchair, you don't get to see Oracle in a lot of things because there's not really a call for her to be there. But some of my favorite Batman stuff of recent years. She's been a part of that as Oracle. Like she was most recently, she's been in the Young Justice cartoon, which is probably the best animated DC cartoon since Justice League back in the 2000s and everything.
And she fits in like kind of like the Birds of Prey like scenario with like Huntress and
Black Canary.
Yeah, and all that jazz. She's the man in the chair for them more often than not.
The woman in the chair.
Yeah, the woman in the chair.
Yeah, so I think that that's probably one of the most important things to come out of the story. And then also, of course, the bigger thing is the possible origin of the Joker.
The Joker, which is, I mean, honestly, like they show it to us and it's still pretty much left in the wind, basically. Like, and once we start talking about the movie, that'll become even more apparent, basically.
Right, yeah.
Is this the first time when this book came out, was the first time anyone had seen any kind of origin story of Joker?
No, and I found this out today. So the flashbacks that are told in this story about how the Joker became the Joker, and like Higgins said, it's kind of left ambiguous is this really what happened? Well, that story that they use with the Red Hood and him falling into the batch of chemicals, it's taken from a just kind of forgotten Detective Comics number 168 back in like 1951. And basically, I did a little bit of reading on it. It's Batman and Robin go to a college undercover as professors because the Red Hood's running around. And then you find out that Red Hood kidnapped the original Red Hood, and then it's later revealed to be the Joker. And they did that one time, and no one said anything about it for decades. And so they took that, which I guess this minus like the movie we'll talk about is the most like concrete origin story that they've given the Joker. And I think there was one a couple years ago called Three Jokers because Batman discovered there were three Jokers, and how are there three Jokers? And I think even then they still at the end left it kind of like which one's the real one, which one, that's what people like about the Joker ultimately is they like that they don't know anything about this guy because he's so insane. How does a guy like that, and that's what this book is about. How's a guy like that, like, where does he come from? What made him that way?
Right.
And I think people like the idea of kind of exploring that, but no one wants that answer because it's not going to live up to whatever it is that's concretely said.
Yeah. Basically giving this guy a backstory takes away from his character for most people.
And so and that's why I wanted to ask you, and why I thought you were a good pick for this. You don't read comics, so you coming in and finding this could be the Joker's origin, and you can talk about more in the movie side of things. Is that how you feel? Do you like it being ambiguous, or would you rather have a story like this is what happened to this guy? This is what makes him tick.
I think that it's going to be hard to talk about it without talking about the movie because I did like the movie.
Yeah,
take on that, but the only really introduction I had to the Joker was from the Michael Keaton Batman movie.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So
Jack Nicholson.
And that origin is kind of similar. You don't know anything about his family life as you do in this, I don't think, but at least, and maybe you do. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie, but I like it. I mean, I like seeing, a little bit of clarity of who he is. I do like the movie's ambiguity of it because, and I don't want to get into that just yet, obviously, but I think the movie did a better job of making it a little ambiguous, but there's some truth in there.
Yeah.
And that's what, this was a little more literal, but I mean, it's a literal representation. But I did like it. I mean, I like the fact that, yes, you do see some kind of origin that this was a real person. He's not an alien. There's no superpower attached to him. He's just certifiably crazy.
It's like one of the big parts, even this, like, even though it's like maybe this didn't happen, but like you see it like with him as the Joker in the parts throughout this story. And he's like, look, I'm just your everyman. Like anybody could be me if they get pushed to the limit far enough.
Right.
Anybody can be driven mad given a terrible situation, which makes it easy to say the Joker can literally be anybody. If the Joker did die, like who would know? Like someone just as crazy would be like, this guy hasn't done much. Maybe I'm the Joker now.
Right.
And again, like this story being as influential as it is for that character, the similarities between this book and the movie, like plot wise, they're not really there, but they play with that idea of an unreliable narrator, and this can kind of be like, this is a possibility. And then with the movie we'll talk about,
Arthur Fleck.
it's way different, and I have issues with that. I don't have issues with that for this same reason. I like this version of the Joker out of the two we'll talk about better, and I think it's mostly just because I believe that he's a competent enough villain. Like, you get the origin still, but he's actually doing Joker-esque things, and the other Joker, not so much, and I'll kind of talk about why, but I think that the story, as short as it is maybe almost perfect in its writing and its dialogue, and just, it does so much in such a little amount of time to me. That's my email, excuse me.
It wraps up about perfectly. I'm gonna jump to another character that isn't ambiguous at all. They keep him perfectly the same. Jim Gordon, he's probably the second most important character in this. And Jim Gordon, we've talked about him in Batman Year One, where he is the go-getter cop that cannot be corrupted, basically.
Yes.
And throughout this, the entire point of the Joker in like the now present days of this comic is that he's trying to break the most unbreakable person, because he proves it's like, Batman, you're broken. You've been broken the entire time. You're Batman. Like, obviously you're just the opposite side of the coin of me as far as crazy goes.
Yeah, not even that opposite. You just kind of channeled it into
Good versus
more,
evil.
Yeah, appropriate thing. Yeah.
But Jim Gordon gets broken in basically the worst imaginable way possible. And I don't know, I guess we can just go ahead and say it. So he's hanging out with Barbara Gordon, who we've been talking about. We said she's gotten shot. They're hanging out in her apartment and talking, or his house. I don't know which one is.
It's just a normal night, though.
His house.
Yeah, it's just a normal night.
He's doing some scrapbooking.
Doing some scrapbooking, yeah.
She answers the door, and the Joker, as soon as the door opens, he shoots her through the spine, which I imagine is planned. He doesn't want her dead. He wants to ruin her and him, basically.
He has that really good joke about the spine of the book is broken, you know,
he
bad
really
condition.
rides
Yeah.
that library.
You know, he wrote that up before he came in.
Yeah.
Tested it with a few audiences. It played. So, yeah. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
If we are diving into it,
oh yeah, for sure.
I've got a question from earlier on.
Oh yeah,
that I still don't understand. Batman visits Joker in the
an Arkham
jail,
asylum,
asylum, and they have the conversation about that we're going to kill each other. We don't have to go that route.
Yeah, Batman's is kind of like his last attempt to get the Joker on the right path, so he doesn't eventually break and murder him, or he murders Batman.
Right.
Like, that's kind of the only option he sees. So he wants to change that.
But why does he keep asking him, where is he? It's like Batman is asking him, who is he? Who's he looking for?
I'll let Higgins take that, yeah.
This is the Joker that he's talking to in the prison. I'm assuming it is a prison guard that has been broken by the Joker, has been played by the Joker, and he gets put in the paint, and
that's why he's talking
the Joker has escaped. The paint rubbed off and all that, and
that makes sense.
One of the other big parts of the Joker is Batman. He catches him pretty much every time, but the Joker almost always escapes. He's connections through any criminal organization. He has every possible way to get out of it, and he's just crazy enough to turn anybody, basically. And that's why it's such a big aspect of him, where he's trying to turn Batman to killing him. He almost wants Batman to kill him.
Yeah.
But he's able to play every other, your everyday person. He can basically get them to do whatever he wants.
Okay.
Yeah.
At some point.
That's making sense now. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that scene,
the wig came off.
Exactly.
He pulls the wig off, and I was like, what is it?
So the version we read is the deluxe version. It's been recolored.
Yeah.
That email I sent you has the original colors on some of those pages. John Higgins was the original colors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I wouldn't say wow with a smile, because apparently no one liked that.
Oh, wow.
And if you see, they're night and day. I showed Brian yesterday. So when they asked Brian Boland, the original artist on this, to come and write the afterword for the deluxe edition, he asked if he could recolor it. He couldn't color it at the time, and so they brought John Higgins in, who I don't think he necessarily did a terrible job, but Brian Boland brings this entire like new take on it where it's just it fits the tone of the book a lot more, where it's kind of just noir and somber and it's always raining. And I think in these colors you see like just again these subtleties of what makes it really great. Like in that interrogation scene, you turn the page after it's revealed that that's not the real Joker, and just looking at the reveal of the Joker versus that guy, it's just little differences. You're like, of course that's not him. Like this, the paint comes off. Well, that's not paint on Joker, that's his skin. But even the color of the hair of the wig is like more yellow, whereas the real Joker is just super shiny and clean and green. And I think that this particular job with coloring does work a lot better in the story.
And just looking at it now, it's like a lot of the stuff is more, I would say, almost like dreamscapey. It's like
Trippy,
John
yeah.
Higgins knew that he was working with an Elseworlds story, and he was like, how can I make it so that people are like, oh yeah, this probably didn't technically happen.
And you know, it's different techniques at the time too, because like when Boland did this, he did it on the computer. He talks about how like he lost all his original drawings, and so someone was able to basically take the color out of the scans of the
originals.
John Higgins version and brought it back to black and white, and then he would use like Photoshop and stuff to either redraw things and color it. And so it has that differences going for it that make obviously the digital version is going to be cleaner, but I think just those tones of blue and gray and black in this new version is what helps it. Someone said, I was reading just different forums and stuff about it, someone did point out that they like the John Higgins version for like the carnival scenes where it's all going through the ride, because it's just it's more manic and like ethereal, and
Something
I think
that can
that
make-
makes sense.
Yeah, because I mean, you're shoving Jim Gordon through this carnival ride. The Joker bought a carnival, a dilapidated carnival,
Yeah,
and he
for
was
a
like,
steal.
yeah, for a steal. But
He murdered
And-
that guy.
well, he did his Joker thing to him.
Yeah.
And yeah, the manic thing probably wouldn't make a lot of sense. Like you're trying to break a guy, like bright colors, all of that sort of stuff. The brutal pictures of his daughter in undress, it just adds to like, oh, I'm trying to do everything possible to make this guy
Lose it.
lose it.
Yeah.
And that's the part I was talking about earlier with Jim Gordon is after all of that, Batman comes to him eventually and he's like, look, like Batman says, you need to stay here. Like you're going to be fine. I know you've seen a lot and all that, but, and then Jim Gordon, like immediately he's still the cop. He's like stark naked in this amusement park after seeing all of that horrible, horrible stuff. And he's like, look, you got to get this guy and I want you to do it by the book. Don't kill him. It's like, take him into prison.
I think all of the dialogue, like that is an example. It's all like, it's all great. It's kind of over the top, but it just works so well in a Batman comic for me. Because a lot of times Batman dialogue is just like, he's a man of little words, and it's, you know, that's intimidating, but Batman talks a lot in this, but it all feels very Batman. And he was already thinking, I'm probably going to have to murder this guy. And then you have what he did to Barbara weighing on him. And then he sees the state that Jim Gordon's in. And that might be one of the few things that made Batman not just immediately murder him, because Jim Gordon was okay.
Yeah.
And there's no reason he really he should have gone mad, honestly.
Yes.
But that's a good representation of that character to show he lives in the worst city, he has the worst job, and he's dealing with lunatics on a regular basis. And this has just gone to a whole other level than we've seen. He's still Jim Gordon.
He's still Jim Gordon.
And we got to see little Jimmy Gordon.
We did get to see little Jimmy Gordon.
Oh yeah, that's true.
That was a surprise.
Yeah.
It's like, first time I read it, I was like, oh, wow.
You're like, this is what these guys
that's
talk
interesting.
about. Okay.
And then the second time I read it, I had to zoom in because I was like, maybe it's not what I thought it was. It was what I thought. Maybe it was like a cheek or something shining through there. But no, it was little Jimmy Gordon.
He's a little beans and poles. He only shows it once.
I think his big debut.
He did.
They keep the nudity very classy in this book.
Yeah. It was very. I mean, it was subtle. It was subtle.
It was subtle.
I think they had.
If you wanted to see it, you could
break
see it.
them. Yeah. And then Barbara Gordon, the same thing, and you're like,
And it's like, I shouldn't look at this.
yeah,
This is wrong.
I mean, and I guess that's a good storyteller. If you feel wrong for looking at it, then it's like, okay, it's accomplishing what it's supposed to. You know that they're trying to some way get you into Jim Gordon's head.
Yeah.
I think the art in this is pretty stellar. I've never heard of Brian Boland before. I had read this comic, but I honestly didn't pay attention to who drew it. And so for this, I went through, and he really hasn't done a lot. Like up to like he did some stuff with Alan Moore, or maybe like they attempted to do some stuff. It was Brian Boland's idea to do this story. I think DC was just like, hey, what do you want to do? And he's like, I want to do a Batman story with Alan Moore, please. And Alan Moore was like, yeah, because they've been trying to work together. I think Brian Boland before had done some stuff on like 2000 AD, which is what's crap, Judge Dredd. There we go. But now he just pretty much just covers. And in an interview, he's just like, yeah, I worked with Alan Moore, and you can't really like go better than that. So I'm just gonna be doing covers on my own.
I think this is a good point. Now, remember what we were talking about, but I gotta do Higgins.
Oh, okay.
Is that a new drink or?
No, that's Higgins has to go to the bathroom.
I do too, actually.
Okay. All right, we're gonna
debating when that happens.
We're gonna take a quick Higgins break, but we'll be right back. And we're back. Just an update real quick on everyone who was wondering. Ask Jeeves has been changed to ask.com.
I saw that.
Don't like that.
Yeah. They just completely canceled Jeeves.
They took away the butler of the internet.
Yeah.
Probably said the N-word on Joe Rogan's podcast.
There is an AskJeeves.net now. I did run across it, but I think it's just a
copy,
less than copy.
Yeah.
Don't like that at all. You know what I do like though? The Joker.
Like, I'm almost cool talking about the comic. We've raved and reviewed about it.
I only had one other thing I was gonna kind of.
Yeah, I was gonna say like maybe us throw out like our favorite scene or something like that.
Well, I was gonna ask you guys. This is, I guess, the closest thing we have to a definitive origin story for the Joker. Overall, like, how do you guys feel about it from beginning to end, to comedian to madman, chemicals and such?
I think that they did a good job. They took a broken man and broke him to the point where he could be this madman in this. Like, you see him he's the lowest of the low. He's a comedian that can't do his thing. And then he's pushed to crime anyways. And then the worst thing happens and he gets dropped in chemicals and goes mad. And that's what turns him. And that's probably the only way you could do it. I mean, obviously people do it different ways, but
yeah,
it makes the most sense. You take what I expect to be the Joker's origin, which is a nobody, and that falls into the line of like a Joker could be an any man. It could be anybody.
And they did try to make him an any man. I mean, he was a regular in this comic. He was a regular guy. He had a mean streak. You saw when he and his wife got in a fight. I thought it was interesting that his wife said he was good in the sack, I was like, okay, well,
it's like his only good quality, basically.
He makes
it doesn't matter. You're good in the sack, and it was a joke, I think.
Yeah.
But the movie obviously has more time and more latitude to bring a lot into the character.
That's what I would. That would be the only thing that I would say about their origin story is like, I don't know that I got enough of pre-Joker to understand what got him to post-Joker.
Transition.
Yeah. It's in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that they did it the way they did. And that's how flashbacks usually work. Show, not tell, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's almost like with this, like, we know he's the Joker. We know what he's going to become. And we already knew at this point, or I guess people who were really into this would have known that, like, he falls into the chemicals. You found out some way.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it works backwards as far as like what you want to kind of know. Like, you want to know where was he at the very beginning and kind of what led into that. And they, again, that tagline of it only takes one bad day. It's not just the chemical thing that happens, the robbery gone wrong or whatever. His wife literally dies the same day.
His wife and unborn
child
died.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty, yeah.
He bombed at the club.
He's like, I have no reason to do this. And then the people are like, well, you're already in it now. We'll kill you if you don't.
And we'll definitely talk more about Joaquin Phoenix's Joker origin. I think that both of these work really well in the particular worlds that they're set in. Like, this is a very grounded story, the flashback in this one, but it still has so much elements of just comic book wackiness. Like, he's the Joker, calls himself the Joker because he's a failed comedian, but also he fell in the chemical plant where he was going to the card playing factory or whatever. So it's ridiculous.
They tied in
kind
everything,
of silly.
basically.
Yeah. And
you know what they were trying to steal?
It's like money or something, and for whatever reason,
The card company was a rich company or something
it
like
was
that.
those bicycle cards.
Oh,
They're just
yeah.
selling them hot and fast.
Going
but
off the shelves.
Back in those days.
it's again that silliness of like, yeah, I can get you in. Like the factory, this chemical factory I
It's
work in is connected to the playing
it's
card
like
Connected
factory.
by a beam
you
or
just
something
break
like
in the
that.
playing card factory.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I love how stupid it is, and I love that when they play it straight like this. And you know, you still kind of feel for this guy, even though,
Yeah.
like Brian was saying, he is not exactly the best guy anyway. Like he kind
Right.
of snapped at his wife, and you could tell it's getting to them
He has
getting to him.
He has it in him, you know, a little bit.
Yeah,
everybody does.
He takes that
but
push.
That push. I still think you have to be predisposed to go where he went.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't. And I think that's what we learned at the end. You know, Jim Gordon proved to the point that, you know, you don't have to go there. And I think
People are the way that they are.
Yeah.
You can be broken, but you can also not be broken.
you can be redeemed if you choose to go that route.
Yeah.
And I do think it was interesting to you know, to help wrap it up was at the end, you know, when they share the joke together and they're laughing, both of them start laughing. You realize the similarity between their two situations,
You're
and between
like-
these two guys who have both been pushed to their limit and chose different ways to deal with it. Neither of them are Jim Gordon. Neither of them are the Boy Scout. Right?
Yeah.
Like Batman, you know, in his own right, went crazy too.
Yeah, he was just able to channel it in a
Right.
more kind
Yeah.
of beneficial way for everyone else. So it plays into that mirror image kind of idea, which has always kind of been there with the Joker and Batman. That's why he's his arch nemesis. Why I prefer this version, I think, of the Joker is because he's so similar to Batman in a sense of they both have, like, they've both taken their weird origin stories and, like, put it in obviously different paths. But this Joker is a match for Batman, which I enjoy because the Joker is certifiably insane, yes, but he doesn't do anything without reason. And you can see that in this entire book. Really, the only way Batman kind of wins in the end is because the Joker's just the Joker, because he has him at gunpoint, and then when he fires the gun, it's just like empty.
It's a joke.
Yeah.
He could have put a bullet in that.
Yeah.
But the Joker doesn't care because that's not, he doesn't want to get away. Like he wants to get away, but he doesn't care if he
He
gets
had
away.
no
It's not his
intention of
point.
killing Batman.
Because that's not the plan that he had. He didn't succeed in his plan because Jim Gordon didn't go crazy, but I don't know, he's a super genius essentially, and I like that.
Yeah, I think the whole point of the Joker is he's a crazy guy, and he sees Batman his exact opposite, and he's like, I want to make him me. And that's where the end gets a little crazy, because like I was talking about Steve about the ending of this book because he had read it too, and he was like, so the Joker died at the end, right? And I was like, well, I don't know, I kind of think it's left kind of ambiguous. Like before it is drafted into canon, I think you could say that Batman did kill the Joker. They met at an ends, and the Joker realized that he was done, and the Batman had finally been broken to the point where he was willing to take this man out that has caused so much evil. But now that it's brought into canon, it can be taken the exact opposite way.
Because the Joker's still around.
Because the Joker's still around, you can say that Batman, after all of the talks with Jim Gordon towards the end of his part, it basically got Batman to the point where he was like, no. And it's like, I know I haven't killed people before, but now I'm dead set, like, I'm doing this the right way. And, like, you never see a death.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best part of the end of the me is, like, it's like the end of Inception. You're not sure what you're getting. You're like, yeah, he could be dead, or he could be alive. And it's up to your interpretation to see which version of the character you want to see.
I mean, I don't think he killed him. I would,
So-
just because of the conversation that he and Jim Gordon had prior to tracking down the Joker. It seemed like Batman had every intention of doing it by the book.
Yeah, so the reason that people think, and it's always like it's just been a constant debate of was he killed, was he not, is in the last few panels, and you can see it. He tells the joke about the psychotic inmates and the Bridge of Light or whatever. It's actually pretty clever, I think. And the last few panels are they're laughing, and the laughter trails off
Then all of a sudden, no laugh on the last two panels.
from either. And so it's that question of, and also, and I didn't notice this until this reading, the last like few panels are the headlights are coming up behind Batman and Joker.
The cops.
And you see one of the headlights in the reflection of the water as that bridge that Joker mentions in that joke.
Yeah.
And then it goes
that?
away.
Goes away.
And so it's like, oh, Batman's the guy who turned the flashlight off.
Yeah.
And that's always been the question of, did he kill him, did he not? And Alan Moore, Brian Boland, no one's ever come clean and just said, this was my intention. And I think it's a good thing. I don't think anyone, again, I think it's that same thing with the Joker's origin in general. I
Everything
don't think
about him-
anyone wants a definitive answer.
Yeah, everything about him is ambiguous.
Yeah.
We don't know. We don't want to know if he's gone. We don't want to know if it even is the same guy.
And it's honestly not important. Like, it's not what the story was trying to tell. It wasn't trying to give you an ending to their story. It was just trying to, did he prove a point?
Yeah.
Could he make Batman go insane? Could he make Jim Gordon? Like, that's all this was supposed to show. And I like that a lot.
I did not notice the bridge until you said it. I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. I didn't put that together, the light bridge. And so I could see now why they would, make that assumption of. And like you said before, is that they never really intended it to be a part of canon. This was
It's an Elseworlds one-off, yeah.
So,
and that's kind of what Higgins.
why wouldn't they? Yeah,
I agree with you. Where before, take it either way. It could literally be either or. But then by bringing a lot of this into the main continuity, it does kind of just break it down a bit.
It basically tells you that he didn't kill the Joker.
Yeah.
right.
By bringing this into continuity, Batman has become the best version of himself.
Mm-hmm.
If this is left as an Elseworld story, I'd say Batman killed him.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think we've talked this book to death. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah.
We gonna
Obviously-
rate it?
Oh, we could rate it, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that before we hop into our next section,
That's right.
if you want to.
Yeah, Brian, you're our guest. You know how the
All right.
ratings work.
I do.
Give us
It's
what
kind
you're
of like
thinking.
Who's Line.
I'm gonna give. I did enjoy this book, and I liked it better after I watched the movie. So I think I would give it. I'm gonna say like 4 out of 5. Little Jimmy Gordons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I just like. I'm gonna have to think about it a little bit. I'm looking through the panels.
Higgins is having a hard time, unlike little Jimmy Gordon.
I'm gonna say those things in carnivals where you hit the hammer and it hits the bell and all that
the
stuff.
test of strength, yeah.
I think it touches the bell but doesn't make a sound. It's almost perfect, but obviously it could always be better. It's one of, if not the best comics ever written.
It is. Yeah, and we're not really saying anything new by saying that, but our opinion matters to someone somewhere. I agree. And I don't really have anything necessarily bad to say about what this comic is doing. I pretty much like every aspect of it, and for that reason, I'm gonna let 3 people across that light bridge, and that's everyone. And then I'll turn the flashlight off because got to conserve battery.
I'm gonna admit something now that we're done talking about it. The joke with the light bridge and everything like that. I didn't laugh at it because I didn't realize that beam meant like a light beam. I was just thinking there was a beam across the 2 buildings, and I was like, "What does him turning it off do?"
So Higgins, not only have you learned a lot about the Joker, you've learned now how flashlights work.
Yeah, well, that
a
the
win-win.
word beam can be used for multiple things.
Who would have thought?
I think this is a perfect time to talk about the drink that has gotten us to the silly state that I'm probably in
That's
right
the
now.
point of sobriety.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Actually, I feel like I've held it together very well. All of the words out of my mouth have seemed pretty fluid. Probably one of the best episodes I've ever done. I don't want to toot my own horn, but
you
toot,
have had
toot.
that. You've had that consistent problem where you can't say Elseworlds. You say Elsewords. but
Elsewords.
That's not really like a drinking issue.
I'm just bad at words.
That's a tough word to say, though. Honestly, like
Yeah.
I had to think about it before I said it. But tell us about the drink you've been drinking.
So this was brought by you guys, which is kind of a wild take. I'm usually the guy that brings in the drinks. I didn't have to Google. I don't know if you guys did.
We Googled a little, yeah.
All right. Well, it's good to know that has been a steady staple for us.
We would have asked Jeeves, but he's not in anymore.
So this drink is called the Bruce Wayne, which for all you people that don't know, that's Batman.
It's Batman's name.
That's Batman's name. It's a secret.
He's rich.
Like honestly, one of the best drinks we've had on the podcast. I'm really glad that we've mixed it with one of the best books we've read on the podcast, and it is a mixture of cold brew coffee, 4.5 ounces. You get a couple ounces of bourbon of your choice. We chose something in a decanter that Brian brought over for us.
That's
It
right.
was fancy as hell.
It is an unknown bourbon.
Someone just handed him a decanter full of
Yeah.
bourbon.
Which is almost perfect because I said bourbon of our choice. So, and then just a splash of maple syrup,
It's
like
more of
about a
s-
half ounce.
Yeah, it's up to taste, honestly.
Yeah.
that part.
And honestly, guys, I am not a bourbon guy, but you almost can't taste the bourbon. It makes bourbon more palatable than I've ever had bourbon before.
I hear that if you keep drinking more of that, you'll taste even less bourbon.
Yeah. That's how it's been working for me.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah. Very good. I am going to leave the link for that recipe that Higgins mentioned, the Bruce Wayne. It's also got like 6 other Batman themed drinks
Yeah,
in here
fun-
if you want to
fun
just
drinks.
try different things. Quick note though, it says to shake all these ingredients in a cocktail shaker. I have been told by someone who has bartended, not the case. You want to stir that bourbon, otherwise you might bruise it, I believe is the term.
Yeah, I mean, that's how a lot of the stuff works. Like the Bond thing where he says shake martini not stirred.
She referenced that as an example of
You're not
good. Yeah,
You're not supposed to shake. Honestly, you're not supposed to shake much liquor at all.
vodka is okay.
Whatever it is it bruises it, like you said,
It like
and it
mixes
makes
up-
it more alcoholic, but ruins the flavor.
Exactly. And that's really what we're here for at the end of the day. And might I say, with this particular drink, the Bruce
Nailed
Wayne,
it.
smooth.
We
Yeah,
shake it. We
pretty
shake
smooth.
everything else though.
Yeah.
Screw that bartending rule. We fly by the seat of our own pants.
Makes sense you can shake vodka. Those Russians are pretty hardy folk.
A little hard and loose.
Yeah.
That was the thing that I heard with the James Bond is he liked it to shake it because it makes the alcohol more alcoholic. He just wanted to get drunker quicker.
Makes sense given his life and just
Yeah.
overall occupation. Yeah.
His disposition. Yeah.
Who's probably the most alcoholic out of the James Bonds, you think?
Of the,
Of the ones we've had so far, like actors wise?
I would say Sean Connery.
Yeah, that's what I would say too.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah,
so.
and I don't know all of them. George Lazenby might be.
Just one of the older ones. They don't bring the alcohol part into the newer movies.
Nor like hitting the women around.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Or, I mean, depending on what you want.
Depends on what the woman wants, I guess. So yeah, very good drink. Hope to have something just as good on the next episode, and if not,
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. None of this matters, honestly, Higgins. But you know what does matter a little bit? The next segment of the show we're gonna do.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I could probably do something for that.
Mhm.
Dun-dun-dun-dun, 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 dun-dun-dun-dun. Readings for squares.
Did a
I don't
few-
know if you
a few extra dun-dun-duns in there.
noticed that I did a little extra longer.
it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I didn't
because
realize you
this
were-
section is going to be a little bit longer than you guys are normally used to.
Oh.
I didn't realize you recorded those live every time.
Oh,
I
every
just thought
time.
it was a.
No, I make him do it every time.
Now, is
Yeah.
it?
I'm not gonna put more editing on myself.
It's a joke, but it's
Yeah.
a joke we say a lot, but it is something I do every time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm glad you got to see it.
I did in person live.
I'm not tooting my own horn again. I literally pulled that out of my ass the very first time. Didn't know what I was going to do for that. I thought we were going to record some fun music like last time for the theme song.
Jingle.
Yeah.
But you see, I make you do it every time live, and because of that, you played into this new longer segment with it.
Yeah.
So you're welcome.
Yeah. No, it worked perfectly. As soon as
And
you
we all
said
win
this
in
was
the
going to
end.
be a long movie segment, I was like, I'm going to put 2 more dun and nuts in there.
Exactly. And I mean, we don't.
They call it foreshadowing.
We don't have
God,
to
I
really.
love books.
Well, Higgins, I'm glad you love books, but this time we're talking about movie,
Shit.
a specific movie this time, and we've already kind of said that movie is Joker.
Joker.
Just Joker.
Just Joker.
Not
I
the
almost said the
yeah.
Joker.
Yeah, don't do that. 2019, this came out in
Yeah.
a world where we had no pandemics. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
And
Pre-pandemic.
because of that, this movie made so much money.
1.07 billion. If I'm
Exactly.
reading this correctly.
Would you like to know how much this movie cost to make?
No.
All right.
Yeah. No,
That's
go
it.
ahead.
I see it.
I'd like to know, and I do know. So typically a superhero movie these days, you're running at least like 150 to 200 million, right?
Luckily, no super stuff happens, so they didn't have to spend
There's
it
no
on
effects.
CGI.
Exactly. And so it's rumored that this cost anywhere between 55 to 70 million, and as Brian said, it made $1.7 billion at the
Oh my
box office.
God, Todd Phillips probably creamed his pants.
And he's going to put it in the next Hangover sequel, because that's who this guy is, Todd Phillips, the director. He did. It's weird the background that both the guy who made this film and the guy who shot this film came from, because Todd Phillips, he's done the Hangover trilogy, he did Due Date, Old School, like just all those classic
Comedy movies.
funny comedy movies, yeah, and the Hangover sequels. He did those too. And then the DP, who I've never heard of, Lawrence Sher, kind of did the same. Like he did a lot of Todd Phillips movies. He did all the Hangover movies. He did Due Date. He did I Love You Man. So it's just like all like that.
Comedies, yeah.
And then he comes in here and he just makes a great looking movie. I think
God.
this movie is fantastic cinematography wise.
It is
Yeah.
DC's best movie.
Oh yeah. Well, I haven't seen them all,
Besides the Dark Knight trilogy, and that's kind of besides the Dark Knight. I'm not going to say the trilogy. This Dark Knight's the top, then the Joker's second.
Trying to
in
think
my
of the one I
opinion.
like better.
I like the Dark Knight better. I think
Cool.
the Joker's better in the Dark Knight, but
Oh no, I'm trying to think of a better like DC movie
DC.
that I like.
Aquaman? What, Dave?
Aquaman's okay.
That's the best one other than that, right?
Yeah, so just to I think I'm gonna have probably the most different opinion on this movie out of the three of us.
Yeah.
I'll start off by saying I like this movie. I don't necessarily like this movie as a DC Joker movie, and this is written by Todd Phillips and another guy. I can't remember his name. I believe that
Scott Silver.
Thank you, Scott Silver. I believe that this started out as a script about a man who is let down by society. He's a failing comedian, and the original title was Clown. And then they said, how can we make people
More
want
money.
to see this? Let's change it for Joker. Okay, this family, this is the rich family. Let's make this the Waynes. Let's kill Batman's parents. DC movie.
I 100% agree with that. And for the same reasons we were talking about with the comic, where it does vary so differently between that and that. Like, sure, this guy probably had like a mental illness, but they were like, how can we make it the Joker? He laughs when he's anxious at any point, basically. And other stuff like that. They did turn it into a superhero movie. That being said, they gave us an ambiguous origin story.
And it works in that aspect for me. The Killing Joke has that line that's just like, if I had a past, I prefer it to be multiple choice.
Yeah.
I see that as another one of these options. And that's why I watched it today. Brian came over and we were just kind of going through it. It's probably the third time I've seen this movie. I've lightened up on it since I first saw it because of that reason, to see it from that angle. And also, I think it's good for people who don't care about comics, but like the concept of the Joker. My mom loves this movie, and I think it's because of the more human element that it gives versus like what you typically get from the Joker in comic books.
Right.
I will specifically say this movie, if it had not been connected to superhero lore and everything like that, could have been a very good Oscar contender.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, he won the Oscar for this
Yeah.
movie, so
Oh, yeah.
And
I didn't even realize that.
yeah, he did. No,
but if they had not brought it into the superhero world, which is a big contention with everybody that watches movies, they did a very different story that no one has ever told before, and they did a very good job for it.
I think so.
I think the connections to Batman and the Joker probably brought it down technically.
it doesn't need to be there.
It doesn't need to be
Yeah.
there, which makes it seem excessive. That being said, it is a very good Joker origin story.
Yeah, Brian, what were you?
Well, in Heath Ledger's Dark Knight, he had a different story every time of his origin. It was always different, and nobody knew the real thing. And so, I think this pays homage to a lot of different, and I'm guessing that's why they took so long with it, is it pays homage to a lot of different stories. There was a lot of visual cues in the movie that were clearly taken from The Killing Joke.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think they really didn't just subtly do it. I mean, they went into it. This is supposed to be,
This is the Joker origin story for probably like 75% of people that know the Joker.
Mhm.
This is the catch-all,
Yeah.
grab-all version for people that wouldn't normally be into comics, which probably isn't our listenership, but would be if we were big.
Right.
It's hard to say what our listenership really is. You know, we've got
Yeah.
a mishmash of people. We got those people in France. They seem to
That's
like us a
right.
good bit, and we like you guys too.
And the Kingdom of Bahrain.
You have some from Bahrain?
Apparently,
Yeah.
Higgins
Nice.
keeps up with that more than I do, but that's good to know. Actually,
Nice.
very good.
All right.
Yeah, I agree to all of those points, and like I said, it's a great looking movie. It's spectacularly acted. Like Joaquin Phoenix just kind of, they're like, have a field day with this. Do what you want to do. The way that this movie kind of came about production wise is Todd Phillips apparently wanted to make something a little darker, and he wanted to do a character study. He basically wanted to do Taxi Driver, because that's
Yeah.
basically what this movie is. And
I haven't watched Taxi
Falling
Driver,
down.
so I'm sure
you
you're right.
kind of have, but he wanted to do that, and he got Warner Brothers to agree to an idea I think they should do more of with DC's characters, and he pitched it as, let's just do a low budget one that doesn't exist in your continuity.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they've since taken that idea and kind of put it into their main movies, because now like all the current DC movies coming out are like, you can say that this isn't Zack Snyder's stuff, but you really
Yeah.
don't have to. Like Shazam is loosely tied, and I really like Shazam as
The movie was great.
and
We did a episode about that too, guys.
we did
Go
do that. I
back.
forgot
Y'all
about that. Yeah. So I like that idea, and I wish they would do these more low budget kind of films with some of the more grounded DC characters. I think that's a good call to make, because there's a lot of just really great characters in comics that aren't going to get a movie of their own unless, honestly, you maybe approach it like this. Like, you could do this with a ton of different characters.
I would love a Red Tornado movie.
I would love a Red Tornado movie. Red Tornado is a robot man who can make red tornadoes.
Okay.
Just so you know, yeah.
I would love a Clayman movie.
Clayface.
Clayface.
Yeah, that would be good. The only thing I would say about that is, if you are going to take these comic book characters, there's a reason why people want to see these on the big screen. They want to see them, want to see these stories. Give me at least a little more.
At least try to tie something to the actual thing other than just saying some words that are in the other part of it.
Yeah, it's not Easter eggs at that point. It's just
Right.
like, you're doing this to
You're
me.
doing-
You're checking a list.
You're making a
essentially.
cameo.
Yeah, and like with this Joker movie, like I said, I do like it, and I think I see why people love it, and I see why you would make it. But now we gotta either we're gonna get a sequel to this because it made $1 billion.
What I think is that this is a great movie, but this isn't a great comic book movie.
It's not, and I think we can kind of meet in the middle with this, because we're getting the Batman this year, actually in like a month or something. And apparently, it's been rumored that whatever that actor's name is, he was in the Eternals. He's the mind control guy who was in Killing of a Sacred Deer. All
Oh
that.
yeah.
You've seen the Eternals, haven't you?
I have, but
He
I
was
don't
the
remember.
bowl cut guy who could
He's the
like
Scottish dude.
control the village with his mind.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah.
that guy's real name is. He's rumored to be the Joker in this new Batman movie. It's not confirmed, but he's rumored heavily.
Barry Kogan.
Kogan, yeah. And so I think that we could kind of have a middle ground, because the Batman, even though we haven't seen it yet, it looks very grounded, almost like Dark Knight-esque, but even then, it's still more comic booky to me from what I've seen than the Dark Knight. And I want to see the Joker again, but I want to see the version from like the Killing Joke Joker. I want to see that, because the thing about what's his real name in this movie, Joker movie?
Arthur Fleck.
Arthur Fleck.
Yeah, Arthur Fleck.
The thing about Arthur Fleck is he's an interesting character to me. I don't see, like, with a sequel now that he's the Joker, I don't see how he would make it a day without getting shot or killed, because he just kind of gets by in this movie on running really weirdly and sheer dumb luck. And that's the issue I have with it as a Joker thing.
Yeah, he's not a criminal mastermind.
Mhm.
He's what's it called?
He's a clown.
It's almost like his Joker year one.
Yeah.
Basically,
Mhm.
like he hasn't figured himself out yet. But also, like you said, like Arthur Fleck specifically in this movie is a guy that is clearly like clinically deranged.
Mhm.
And for some reason, because he's in Gotham, he doesn't have the proper care that he needs to become a proper member of society.
Yeah, I think that his penchant for violence, extreme violence,
How he gets snap. Yeah.
may be the thing that would elevate him in this new world that he's created.
That's the one thing about him that clicks the Joker for me. There's a specific scene which is basically what I think like breaks him in this specific movie. He's just came back from like a clown gig. His like mental illness makes him laugh when he's anxious or scared or
any emotion.
Basically, he laughs in a very kind of gross way.
Yeah, yeah, a disturbing laugh.
And he's in the subway, and those guys are like, "What are you laughing at?" It's Gotham. They're bad people everywhere. Right. Even the normal people are bad people. And they start beating him up, and he has this gun. And you see it in his, like, at first you're like, self-defense, this guy, he shot him. And then the last guy that he gets, he's like, I'm going to take this guy out. I'm going to take him out no matter what. I'm a bad guy now. And it's like, I don't care that I'm free and safe now. This guy needs to die. And he chases him and shoots him multiple times, but not until the very end. He's not even killing him. He's just
shooting a corpse.
Yeah. Yeah, it was interesting that he was also such a great shot.
Yeah.
He
like immediately.
Incredibly good. It's like double kill easy off the bat. And then
in the head.
The tension of that scene and it being what makes him finally snap, like really great stuff.
Yeah.
I love the look of this Gotham. I love this grimy 80s New York-esque Gotham where, like Higgins said, everyone is awful and everyone hates him. I looked into the name because I had never, like, I've heard of Jack Napier. I've heard that name used for the Joker, but I'd never heard of Arthur Fleck. I'm like, what is this? And Todd Phillips apparently says that he took the name Arthur from royalty, King Arthur, and because in this he's maybe possibly
could be the son
of Thomas Wayne, who's like he's the biggest guy in the city. And then Fleck refers to a fleck of dust. So he's basically like the king of nothing. And I think that's pretty clever. And it definitely fits this version of that character really well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the look of it.
I think it's very much implied that he is the son of Thomas Wayne. That
was a question I was going to ask y'all.
You get the point, and they like cast aspersions at it, but you know that Thomas Wayne is the richest man in Gotham. And they do have all the paperwork that like throws you. It's like, hey, look, obviously she adopted this unknown child, and that's the part that doesn't click in my head. It's like this is an unknown. This crazy woman that Thomas Wayne had an affair with, just for whatever reason,
maybe
adopted a child.
Yeah, it was kind of strange.
Because Brian and I, before we got here, we did the math. Joaquin Phoenix is like 47 years old. Brett Cullen, who plays Thomas Wayne, is 65. So if their ages in real life are their ages in this movie, basically Thomas Wayne would have been 18 when he had Arthur Fleck,
and then
which is possible for sure. And I could see it because she was a maid at the Wayne Manor, so he probably was just like, "Yep, take that, please." And then she had the child, and then they probably, like, if you want to play into the fact that he actually is a kid, they wrote up those adoption papers to cover it up.
But what about all the news stories that they had clippings of where she had abused him as a child or allowed him to be abused by her boyfriend?
So that, I believe, takes place. I think what basically seems to have happened is after the pregnancy is discovered,
he drops her like a
they
rock.
Fire her, and so that stuff still happens. It just she's raising him at that point, and then she dates a guy who abuses her and ends up in a psych asylum and all that stuff. But
the one specific thing that makes me connect Thomas Wayne to who is this Joker character is the, like, right before he goes on Robert De Niro's like talk show or whatever.
Yes.
He sees this picture of his mom and she's young, and then it says something to the effect of "with love, TW."
Yes, yeah.
And that it's like that connects their relationship to the real world to me.
Yeah.
Because before, like, you see his mom and she's not mentally there.
Right.
And you're like, she could surely be making this up. And it could be a very similar situation to, like, there's some movie I'm thinking of where the main character thinks his dad's Bob Barker for some reason.
I've seen that.
For some reason I thought of like Happy Gilmore, but that's not quite right.
That is it, I think, actually.
No, I think he just gets into a fight with Bob Barker because
there's something. Yeah, okay. So there's some movie where, like, I think the main character thinks his dad's this person because his mom says it is.
Yeah.
and it turns out that it's not. She just saying that to keep him like your
'Cause he
dad,
wanted a
because your dad,
dad.
Yeah.
and they try their best to say this is what's happening, but I think that picture seals the deal for me, where it's like, yeah, no, this he probably is his dad.
You could argue though, because she's also certifiably insane, that's her writing on that picture.
Right.
Yeah,
So, and Brian kind of already brought this up. The thing that this probably like has most similar with the Killing Joke story, everything is this real? Is this real?
everything can be brought into question.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll bring up another part that the biggest twist of the movie, I guess, Zazie Beetz' character. I don't know what her name is.
Oh, the single
neighbor.
mom.
Yeah, the neighbor.
Let me ask-
Donahue.
Let me ask ask.com.
I'm on it here. Let's see. It has
The biggest
Sophie Demond. Is her
Sophie
name.
Dumond.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't even like her name's probably unimportant. Technically, she might not even be in the movie for all we know, based
Right.
off of what we've seen.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Well, and
Other than like maybe he was in the elevator with him.
yeah, I think she's there, but every interaction is altered by his mental state.
Yes.
Because like her putting the gun to her head,
that's what he does.
I
yeah.
think you can assume
I
that
think
that was
that-
probably imagined.
I almost think that everything that happened in the elevator,
Actually happened.
that actually happened.
Yeah.
Everything past that, I think, is something that he
Right.
put in his head. Anything that shows her enjoying what he does
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Anything after that, she's not
Yes.
there.
Yeah,
So-
I think with her character, the only thing that's supposed to be real is the elevator interaction, and then when he's in the
when
house.
he's in her apartment
Do you
and
think
she's
he
like,
kills
what
them?
are you doing there?
Do you think he kills them?
I
He
I don't
walks
think
out.
so. I really don't think so.
He walks out. He closes the door. I watched it again to think, was there any clue?
Well, we watched it. You
Yeah.
and I were watching it, and the only instance that maybe implies he murdered her is it cuts to him later in his apartment, and sirens are coming up, but they
Right.
seem to also just go by. So it could
Constantly,
be
yeah.
a completely different, thing. And I believe that she could be alive, and she would just be too scared to say anything because this guy's clearly like crazy, and
Yeah.
for whatever reason, it's the '80s, and everyone just wants to leave their door unlocked. That's on her. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's true.
And
Yeah.
honestly, the other explanation for it is maybe that's not even real.
The
Yeah.
interaction may not have happened. He
Maybe-
got out of the elevator and
he-
went straight to his house.
Because at that point, like he's already been broken,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just figured out the information about his mom, and like when he killed her and everything. And that's like, I don't know which happens first.
Maybe none of it happens, Higgins.
What's that? If he
With
kills his mom, or if he goes,
or if he was in her apartment. I don't remember which happened. I think his mom happened first. So when he gets in that apartment, it makes sense. He's like, I figured out everything. Everything
Yeah.
I've been living is a lie.
no, he doesn't. He kills his mom after,
Okay.
because when he finds out about the truth
The adoption
of his mom,
yeah.
he's coming home and it's raining at night.
Okay.
When he goes and sees her in the hospital and kills her, it's daytime. So it would be a different day, I think.
Yeah,
I think he kills her right before he goes on the show.
Yeah.
If I remember right. He kills his mom.
the pacing of this movie, because it's like a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
This time watching it, it seemed to just go by at a clip. Whereas when I first watched it, it seemed to just drag on because, and maybe that was just because at the time when I first watched it, I was going in thinking like, oh, like
This
we're gonna
is
get
the
some
Batman.
This is
good
Joker, yeah.
We're gonna
yeah.
get some good Joker Killing Joke stuff, and because because he doesn't kill those guys on the subway until like 40 minutes
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
and because knowing that and watching it for the third time, it's interesting to see because the whole setup of this movie is society let him down, and that's why he finally snapped. And you get to see it start with the job everyone just clearly hates him because he's weird. And then he loses his job, so he's already upset about that. And then the thing on the subway happens, and then you get a little bit of a break. But then you get that stuff with Zazie Beetz in the apartment, going into the thing with the mom, going into he murders that one guy who gave him a gun in a brutal way.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
that was amazing.
Like it goes so fast at the very end, and you get wrapped up in it as well. Like it's just,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. That's kind of the biggest problem I have with this Joker as a Joker is he's acting on instinct, and he's just getting lucky, and that is entertaining to watch in this particular world that they've set up. I think once I was able to step away from this isn't comic book Joker. This is something different. Once I was able to get my head around that and accept it, it works as in that setup, I think.
What I almost think the only thing that connects it to DC, specifically Gotham era, is
It's basically New York. Yeah.
that crime wasn't in check.
No,
there's
yeah.
multiple corrupt cops. There's multiple gang violence. People aren't getting arrested for stuff. He's getting away with these crimes because everybody's getting away with these crimes. He literally, like before he shot those guys, they would have gotten away with beating them up in a subway train. They're
rich.
perfect.
Well, they're privileged too, so they would have.
Yeah, they're perfectly
Even
normal.
if they got caught. Yeah.
Perfectly normal business guys, basically.
Well, that one guy does, for whatever reason, know that show tune. I feel that I find that
was
very
interesting.
odd.
Send in the clowns.
Yeah.
I just found it
No,
very
that's
strange.
a Frank Sinatra song.
Yeah.
Man. Or
What's,
Dean Martin one.
I listened to another
Clown.
podcast, and he sings. One of the guys sings this song like before as the intro. He just like while his co-hosts are like talking, he's just like, "Send in the clowns."
It was, I would say, like, there was another unanswered question I had of, I guess, the truth around the mom. Was it true or not? Was he really Thomas Wayne's son? And I think, like, either way, his connection to the Wayne family is, you know, it's there.
There's
and
a
it
connection.
makes sense of why he would hate Bruce so much.
Yes, because
But-
he's the
but
son
he
that
doesn't-
got the good life.
But he doesn't know that Bruce Wayne is Batman, right? Does he?
Well, he's not Batman at that point
But
because
I mean,
he's 8.
in future
No,
movies and
well-
comics, like, does at any point does the Joker find out who
It's-
Batman is?
sometimes yes, sometimes no is
Okay.
the short answer of that. But ultimately, the point of him ever finding out the identity is that he doesn't care because he doesn't. And they play with that in The Dark Knight, where he changes his mind on that one guy wants to reveal his identity or whatever. He's like, actually, I've changed my mind because then that would ruin the fun I'm having because I need Batman to be around.
Right.
And so there's that element of that. If they were to make a sequel of this, like a true comic book type sequel where it's cut to when this Bruce Wayne is Batman, that would actually be kind of interesting to see, just because, one, this is an awful version of Gotham, like maybe one of the worst as far as like the people in it, and they have this maybe brother connection, and he's not directly the reason that his parents got killed, but he's the cause of it, certainly.
People acting out of the
They got caught up in the
movement
hype.
that he
Yeah.
started,
Yeah.
which I thought was kind of cool in a way. I mean, it was
That was the other thing, all with like the clown masks and all that. It's like, was the Joker as being a clown made because this happened, or was it because the protests were happening and people were covering their faces
Mm.
to stop being taken by the protests?
Well, one theory I've seen that I kind of like the idea of, they are making a Joker 2, they've pretty much already confirmed that. That's all we've heard. But if they were to kind of like cut forward, a theory that has gone around is maybe the Joker that Batman fights isn't this Joker, it's one of the followers that came out of that. And I think that could be something. And you could kind of then marry it more into comic booky stuff if you wanted. Because I feel like if you're going to do Batman, you kind of have to up your game a little bit with that kind of stuff if you want to have a Batman in that universe. But maybe you don't. I don't know.
And there's like, that's the other part I've been waiting to mention, the ambiguity of it. Like, obviously Arthur Fleck is 40 some odd years old, and Bruce Wayne's like 10 maybe,
10 at most, yeah.
and everything else you see Joker is basically Batman's age.
Yeah, or
And so like
yeah,
that's the other part where you're like, yeah, it's like maybe they are multiple guys.
Hmm.
It's like, this is the guy that like maybe he started Joker, but in this universe another crazy guy took the mantle and started being the Heath Ledger Joker in that sort of like setting or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And Ryan already kind of brought it up. You know, I wanted to kind of mention a little more. One thing I like about the movement is it was started, one, because everyone felt like the rich people in the city who were supposed to be making things better let them down, and they got tired of it. But also, this movement is entirely based around the random actions of a lunatic.
Yeah.
So I find that very interesting. And it's like, but people were looking for someone to be on their side, and they saw that as that reason because he just happened to kill some Wall Street guys, and it just kicked off this whole thing that kind of got out of his control. but also he's like, this is great.
He's like, this
because
is great,
People think
people-
I'm important.
Yeah.
And his kind of monologue on the
Talk
Arthur
show.
Murray
yeah.
show really captured what the sentiment was from all those people when he's talking to Arthur Murray. He's like, you people think you can do all the. I don't remember the exact thing, but it was articulate. Like he actually did a pretty good job of explaining. And I think that's when he really became their hero. Was on that show.
Yeah. Well, that and he shot him.
Yeah, and he shot him in the head, which was
Which
amazing.
I thought Robert De Niro, like, he'll do anything, but good choice for this.
Oh no, he was a
yeah.
great.
And
pick
it was
for
good.
the host.
apparently intentional because the costume design, we haven't really talked about that. It's different. It's not the traditional purple and green or yellow.
Right.
It's close.
And
Yeah.
the suit is supposed to be partly based off of Robert De Niro's character in
Taxi driver.
no, well, he did a movie.
That's Al
Raging
Pacino.
Bull.
It's something where he's a comedian.
Oh yeah, I saw it listed on here. Yes, it's like I don't remember. It's The Last Joke or I don't remember.
Yeah,
something.
and like even the sets, like the talk show set, is based on the look of that from that movie.
Mm.
So I thought that was, it all adds up right there. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I would say the close of that, and by the way, his dancing, I just felt like that was exactly Jack Nicholson. He was
Oh, yeah.
He does, yeah, he does a
bringing
little bit of
that
a dance,
into
yeah.
it because Jack Nicholson did that like really well. I thought in that Joker version.
Was
And we're all here for it. We've all got our Joker white underpants on while we
That's right.
podcast, doing a little bit of a jig.
It says he lost 50 pounds for 54
he looks-
pounds for the role, and that was great.
He looks.
I mean,
he looks gross.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was. And I don't know anything about Joaquin Phoenix. I know he's a little out there.
Yeah,
For sure. But as far as character acting, like it was pretty good.
Yeah.
He played someone drifting into mania very well, I thought, and maybe it's not too far from reality for him. I don't
Yeah.
know, but
yeah. It's one of those things like how hard was it for you
Yeah.
to get into this
Yeah.
character? Yeah, and the problems I do have with this movie don't all relate to anything like that. Like I think there's been a lot of heart put into this film by the director, the writing, Joaquin Phoenix, obviously. Like I think all of that makes for a really compelling character study. Like I said, they probably worked this into a Joker movie so they could slap the name on it and make $1 billion.
Mhm.
But even if they hadn't, I would have found this compelling just from what it did.
yeah, the movie itself, like you said, like Higgins said, would have probably won an Oscar for the movie. But
Yeah.
because it was tied to a comic, they just don't
Recognize that.
win
Which
anything.
has changed in recent years because they're trying to get people to care about the Oscars.
right.
Because, like I said, he won Best Actor
He
for
won
this.
Best Actor, but I was trying to look at.
And then there's
lists
that
here.
one fish movie where it won
Shape
Best
of
Picture.
Water.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
like, wow,
Shape of Water did. Yeah,
good movie, but I'm very surprised here that this won.
I gotta pee again. I'm literally about to burst.
I actually was just gonna take the first time you did that and use it over and over again, but I enjoy that you're doing it live.
yeah, yeah.
You guys keep talking.
Yeah.
My friend Dylan is here, so
Okay.
I'm gonna let him in. He can just sit in.
All right.
Honestly, I think we're to the point where we're just gonna list off our like last couple points. I mean,
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
want
yeah.
anything you specifically want to talk about, I just wanted to say one thing. We talked about the guys on the train.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was an interesting jump where, like, from the beginning of the movie, he's dressed up in kind of like a Joker attire,
Right.
like for his job where he's a sign spinner,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
those kids steal a sign, and they like take a sign, run away. He's chasing after them, and they beat him up and they cripple him. And it's like that happens earlier on, and he doesn't do anything about it. He hasn't turned into the man that he is
Mhm.
by the end of the movie. So it's kind of fun to see, or it's not fun, but it's kind of neat to
Yeah, it
see.
was fun.
It's kind of neat to see, like, it's like, oh, this guy that he's mentally not there. He's doing everything he can to support his mother the way he is, and he's broken by these. He gets taken by these kids,
Mm.
and then all of a sudden, like, he's gotten to the point where he's like, I've had enough, and train scene happens.
Yeah.
And it's just like, those were kids, and it's like, okay, that's a small version. He's like, this is a small version of him getting taken over. And then it's like those older business guys. And it's like, okay, now the people that are taking advantage of him also grew with age, and he's along with him growing as the evil character that he is.
Yeah. I think that they spent a ton of time in his psyche. And I think that, so it very well could be, a lot of nuanced parallels, because they spent, I mean, that was the thing that gripped me, I think, about the movie was, I think it did a pretty good job for my own I mean, I don't have that much understanding of it, but into Mania, like, I think it did a pretty good job of, I think the closest I've seen was like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, maybe.
Yeah.
Clockwork Orange, like where you're trying to see somebody into that and get into their psyche. But I think that the amount of time they spent on that would probably drove comic book fans crazy. But for me, it gave a reality to a character who was, just a fiction. Up to this point, his circumstances were very just luck, sheer, whatever. He was a criminal and he fell into the tank, and now he became the Joker. But he was always, a really bad guy. This changed that a little bit, and so did the Killing Joke. I think that's probably the closest comparison. Is that
probably the most humanity they give that character in the comics? I'd say. The one thing I kind of would have maybe liked to see in this movie, because they're playing with that same idea of like, is this his fault or did society do this kind of thing? I think with this movie, it's pretty just like cut and dry of like, yeah, he's this way because like everyone let him down. Like you see so many instances of his mom lied to him, his dad or not dad like punched him in the face and doesn't want anything to do with him. Murray, his like hero, brought him on just to make fun of him. Like, he is the hero of this movie in a way because everyone else sucks.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a story about a villain and how I became a villain. So I think it would have been maybe an interesting idea to play with a little bit of, there are good people that are trying to help him, but he avoids that or he just dismisses it because he wants, he has this condition, he says, where I laugh when I'm put in an awkward situation. There's a point where one of the detectives is like, is this real or is this part of your gag?
I think he says, what do you think?
Yeah, and I think because it has this thing with the unreliable narrator, I think that it could be perceived that, no, he is just doing this. And I like the way they kind of play with that idea as it goes because he's super skinny and gross. And then when he finally accepts himself as the Joker, he kills his mom and then he puts the makeup on and he does the dance scene on the stairs or whatever. He looks so much better. Like with the makeup and the hair and the clothes, he looks super happy and healthy. And
he's off his medication too.
Yeah. But for him, he's like, this is like, I feel better than I've ever felt. And so
he said there's nothing wrong. He told his mom, there's nothing wrong with me.
Yes.
This is just me.
So I think if they had kind of like done a little bit more with that, going into that of like, maybe like, I don't know, like a cop or one of the cops is trying to actually help his situation and he just completely disregards it, that would more kind of go like, oh no, this is what he wants. It's not like he's using society as the excuse, and that's partially true as well because again, everyone sucks, but it didn't have to go this way. He wanted it to go this way, kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that sets up a pretty solid stage for a sequel Joker to become the criminal mastermind that he is.
Yeah,
and from my understanding of every Joker that I've seen, and I haven't seen them all because I haven't read any of the comics, but he is really lucky. Like a lot of it, the reason he gets away is dumb luck.
It's amazing he wasn't killed by some of those cars.
Yeah, and so I think he's a criminal mastermind, kind of, but if his criminal intent is just to cause chaos, which is usually what it is, it's just to break down a society that's there that he doesn't subscribe to. And so I think that this does set a stage for a Joker who becomes the Joker we know. Just a really old one.
Very old.
Because Bruce Wayne's like 8 years old in this movie.
Yeah, so when he fights...
He would have to be in his 60s when they meet.
Which is very
Batman and Joker.
Which is very Batman 89 anyway.
Yeah.
But, and you can, like that... I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but it's kind of funny to think about that he's just going to be punching this man to death in his 60s.
Right, yeah, he's this old geezer.
Yeah, I would be interested to see where they kind of go with the sequel for this, because if they are going to keep this extremely grounded and realistic tone, but also they've kind of said what they've wanted to about the society, and that's what it does. This is what it can do. You can't just do that again. Like,
I almost think it'd be interesting if they did take it the way we were saying, where they introduce another character as the Joker in like Bruce Wayne Batman era, because like we said, like they're 40 years, like almost 40 years apart in this movie.
Yeah,
it'd be kind of neat to see maybe like they do
What
Jack
if-
Napier.
Yeah,
now.
what if
different, not Joaquin, maybe even.
because this Joker didn't fall into a pit, he paints his face.
yeah, loves it.
So
Yeah.
what if the younger Joker is the true story is the Heath Ledger story where his dad cut his face, and that was Arthur Fleck. You know, could tie it together. It'd probably be too easy, but
I think that would be an interesting way to take it. They would never do it because they want to make another $1 billion, and they'll go, "We need Joaquin Phoenix again,"
Right.
Yeah,
and
right.
which is that's what
It
people
makes
would want to
sense.
see anyway. But it'll be interesting because I honestly believe they didn't have anything planned for a sequel, and now they're being pressured to make one because it made so much money for so little, investment.
Yeah.
Like I said, these superhero movies typically they'll make that money. Like Marvel has made $1 billion movies plenty of times, but they also cost like $300 million. This, a fraction of that, and so
Yeah.
they want to repeat that as much as they can. And so, yeah, I don't know where they would go with it. It is amazing. It looks as good as it does, though, for that budget.
Yeah.
Like, more expensive movies look way
Cameras.
worse
yeah,
for this.
yeah.
Camera.
I mean,
That's a good
because
point,
it-
Higgins. They do
cameras.
use
Yeah,
cameras.
they do have actual cameras, but yeah, this
Film.
this was so much done with script
Cinema.
and acting that it relied heavily on that. They didn't need the effects
Yeah.
to carry it.
I think so, yeah.
Interesting to see I wonder what would have happened if this was released in 2020.
No one would have been on the streets.
No one would have seen it.
Just would have been wearing masks. Oh,
Yeah.
no one would have seen it. Well, I don't know, maybe. I don't know. They probably would have put it on HBO Max and made no money,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I was fine with because I watched so many movies on
So
HBO
many
Max last
movies.
year.
Yeah, I still am actually. Yeah. Well.
I think we talked this movie to
Yeah.
death.
Yeah. I think we've
I'm gonna
dissected it
say,
enough.
do you want to? I know this is kind of unprecedented, but do you want to do a rating for the movie since it was such a big part of our podcast today?
And our lives, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm gonna say that I don't know what I want to rate this movie.
Wow.
It's gonna be about a 7 though.
Yeah.
That's your.
Somewhere 3/4.
Because we've done this enough. I know that's your backup.
It's a good
You can't
C.
sneak that past.
C rating.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go about a 7 out of Joker stuff. Maybe like a 7 of hearts
7 of hearts.
Gonna give
Yeah.
it 2 out of 4 flex.
because he had a lot of heart, but it was only about a 7.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it 2 out of 4 flex, and I'm gonna give each of you one big pair of those shoes that he
he
wears
runs
sometimes, and he still runs that way even if
That's
he's
right.
not wearing them.
He always runs like he's wearing clown
Yeah.
shoes. Yeah. Which is interesting.
Mhm.
I would I liked it. I did like it. It was, it was a good ride. It wasn't like my favorite movie or anything, but I'm pretty easy to please. So I don't dig into
Yeah.
when it comes to superhero movies and those I'm pretty easy to please. I don't hate many things, but
It's good. That's the kind of attitude we need here.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
where I sit too.
yeah. I usually enjoy it. I'm entertained regardless.
I'm
But
usually the more critical, but I like to
Yeah.
bring a balance to everything, so I feel like that's necessary.
I would probably give it like maybe like 6 out of 10 gouged eyes.
That sounds
We
good.
stabbed that guy in the eye. That was pretty amazing.
That's a good
That's
scene.
pretty wild.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
then
love
like
that
one
scene.
guy can't reach the door.
Yeah, that was
And you're like,
hilarious.
oh man, that's
Yeah,
sad.
that was
but also
hilarious.
kind of
Scary.
funny. It's very scary.
It was-
I like
it
that he
was
let him go
creepy.
though.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
this guy's been
You're the
nice.
only guy that was nice to me.
He's a part of their, he's also been kicked around and
That's
screwed
true.
over constantly, so he has a little bit of affinity for him.
Yeah, they make that miniature golf joke. Not cool. This is a Joker and it's supposed to be a comedian or whatever. There's some kind of decent, funny jokes in this. Like it's more
Yeah.
like visual gags for me. Like I really enjoy the part where he's dancing in the hospital and then the gun drops.
Yeah.
And then there's that scene we watched earlier where he tries to go in through the exit door of the hospital.
yeah.
Yeah. And just smacks.
It's not all it's not all doom and gloom in this.
I think you see glimpses of the Joker we know
Yeah.
in there. Yeah, for sure. That was fun.
So now the part that everybody's waiting for, the book we're going to read next week.
I thought you were going to say the
next
end.
month. Well, yeah, it's the end, but this is the start of the end.
Okay. Higgins, you're picking the book for next month.
Yeah, I'm going to give you 2 choices. All right? All right?
Hold on. Can you give me? Hey, Dylan, can you come here? Thank you. Dylan's here, everyone. I figured I'd just
Bring
work him
Gary.
into the show. He hasn't been on the show yet.
No.
No.
We'll get him in. Be
Yeah,
a sneak peek.
eventually.
All right, so
What's up, man?
Dylan's
All right.
here. Dylan Higgins, we're picking a book for next month, and then we'll be done.
I have 2 options here.
So he's gonna give 2 options. You're gonna pick.
Here you
Okay.
go.
Here you go. Here, you can have this mic.
All right, so I'm either thinking the first volume of Lock and Key, just because Netflix has been going for it, and then there's this one that I kind of want to read by Chip Zdarsky,
Mhm.
a writer of Sex Criminals. You can listen to that episode back in our thing. It's called Stillwater. It's another horror comic. Just a horror. I basically gave you 2 horror comic options: Stillwater or Lock and Key.
Is Lock and Key a horror?
Give him a little bit of a synopsis of both. A quick one.
Wow. Let me.
Is Lock and Key a horror film or horror movie or book?
I think so.
Lock and Key
Is
is,
that the
like
same one
about a
they've
boy
made
who
the
finds a
show?
special lock in a
Yeah.
house or something.
I don't know.
and
It's a
spooky.
key that is that the one the key opens doors to anywhere?
Yes,
There's a show.
Netflix. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
I don't know.
thought
I
it was
don't
a
even
kid's
know
show.
what it's
not
about.
a kid's show.
Something about a. Okay, hold up. That's the TV show. We'll edit this out.
All right, Dylan. Nobody dies in the town
It's
of
written by
Stillwater.
Joe Hill, which is Stephen King's son, right? Or he's just a big horror guy.
Okay.
I don't know. I
That's
might
a
have
movie
talked
or
out of my
a show
ass
too.
there.
I'm
Stillwater.
showing Dylan the synopses of Stillwater right now, so he
Okay.
gets a little bit of a dive into that world, if you will.
What's really great about this is I already own both of these, so
Now we're seeing why you picked these. Now I get it.
Sure, Stillwater looks interesting.
Okay.
all right. That's kind of the one I wanted to do more anyway.
Lock
So
and
I'm
Key
glad
does
you-
not sound appealing. Just
Because he wants all doors to be open.
yeah.
Hates
Yeah.
locks and keys. I get it. Yeah. No, Stillwater sounds good with me
Stillwater
as well.
by Chip Zdarsky, then,
Mhm.
guys.
Very good. Thank you, Dylan.
Exciting.
We'll get you on an actual episode later. I'm gonna teach you how to read,
All right.
and then someone will have to teach me how to read first. So, all right, Stillwater. And you said that's by
Chip
Chip
Zdarsky.
Zdarsky. Seems Ramon K. Perez as well has worked on this.
That sounds right.
I'll look more into that later when we talk about that book.
Yeah.
For now, though, we talked about a book, we talked about a movie, and we didn't do it alone. And that last part's really important.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We did it with our friends.
So thank you once again to Brian Harris.
Cheers.
Cheers.
And thank you to Dylan for picking the book.
Thanks, Dylan.
He says you're welcome. Don't worry, he said it. But I'm going to let this go for... Oh, wait, no, Higgins, we got to clean up shop. Clean up shop
we'll
really
clean
quickly.
up shop. You can find me on Twitter at Mike Higgins 93 and Instagram JSerm93. And you can find Snoop at Snoop_lunch at both of those. He doesn't look at those, but you can also find both of us at yourcomrades@gmail.com. We would love an email. We've gotten very little emails. You guys are breaking our hearts.
Well, some people prefer to send letters by mail.
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for those to get here.
Yeah, we
know.
haven't given them our address yet, but they'll figure it out. But yeah, reach out to us, guys, and then leave us a rating and or a review. You can now do that on at least Spotify and Apple for the rating, and you can leave the review on Apple, I think.
And if you guys do leave us a review, we'd love to call you out for that.
Oh yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna say it until we get too many that we can't say it in an episode. We're gonna read it.
But like I said, if you leave that review, we want to give you your due. So please send us a letter just saying like, hey, we reviewed this. And,
Yeah.
and we reviewed it here, and this is what we said. Because I miss those a lot of times, and I forget to check. But I'd love to talk about it.
And then a big thank you to our buddy Michael at 0-0-8studios.com.
Higgins,
And
Higgins, please. He's our boss.
yeah, our boss.
This is business at the end of the day.
Check him out. Do all the things that he would want you to do on his website. There's no wrong answers. I guess that'll be it.
It's pretty good. Shop's really clean. Thank you. So I will say goodbye for another month. More specifically, I will say cheers, guys. Brian's going to say something. He'll say bye.
Say
anything. It's fine.
Maybe adios.
It's good. I like that.
And
Adios.
knock knock.
Padres. I'm wearing overalls.
Who's there? Sorry.
And then you stop the podcast because no one's there because the podcast is over.
It's very good.
Ah.
That's a good joke, Higgins. You want me to throw a laugh track at the end of that?
I mean, you don't have to. If you can find the best Joker laugh, that'd be probably pretty good too.
It's probably his Joker laugh,
Yeah.
right? I don't know. Who's got the best Joker laugh? Oh, yep. There we go. We'll just use that one.
Very Pillsbury doughboyish.
Bye, everyone.
You tickle and that's what comes out.